Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. Aboard the starship Eclipse Vanguard, starlight streamed through massive viewports, casting flickering beams across the cold metal floor of the security control hub. Lieutenant Jake Callahan stood before a bank of monitors, his sharp blue eyes scanning feeds from corridors, mess halls, and tech bays. Over 6 feet tall, with a chiseled frame forged by years of grueling military training, Jake had a presence that demanded respect. His black security uniform hugged his muscular build, accentuating the gleaming silver badge on his chest, a symbol of the United Earth Alliance's security force. Jake wasn't just good at his job, he had a knack for spotting trouble, what he jokingly called his predator's nose. It was like a sixth sense, catching things even the ship's cutting-edge AI missed. The Eclipse Vanguard, a technological marvel stretching over 3 miles, housed tens of thousands of humans and hundreds of alien delegates. It was on a decade-long mission to the Andromeda Cluster, carrying humanity's hopes for a new frontier. But today, a nagging unease gnawed at Jake, like a shadow lurking just out of sight. In the main mess hall, the air buzzed with the usual chaos. Human laughter mixed with alien sounds, hisses from Clithians, metallic clacks from Zorath pincers. Jake stood in a dim corner, watching the crowd through his analytical visor, a compact device that scanned biometric and behavioral data in real time. His gaze locked onto a striking figure, a logistics worker named Elara Vin, standing at the food dispensary. Elara stood out, even among the ship's diverse alien crew. Her skin shimmered with a faint golden hue, catching the mess hall's white lights like polished metal. Her platinum hair, long and sleek, was tied back, revealing pointed ears that didn't match any species in Jake's database. Her oversized emerald eyes, gleaming like gemstones, scanned her surroundings with cautious precision. She wore the standard gray logistics uniform, but long gloves covering her wrists caught Jake's attention. Something wasn't right. For 6 months, Jake had quietly observed Elara. Small, odd details piled up. She avoided Earth protein foods as if they repelled her. At times, when distracted, her speech carried an unusual cadence, unlike the Voran dialect she claimed as her own. Last week, when she spilled a cup of water in the biolab, Jake caught a glimpse of a mark on her wrist, a shimmering pattern, unlike any tattoo or biometric signature he'd seen. Jake moved through the crowd, his steps confident but understated. People parted instinctively, sensing his commanding presence. As he reached the food counter, Elara was carefully selecting a synthetic salad, her pale gold gloves steady on the metal tray. She hadn't noticed him. "You're not Elara Vin, are you, Princess Silvara of the Luminous Veil?" Jake said, his voice low, just loud enough for her to hear over the mess hall's din. Elara froze, her tray trembling, nearly dropping the salad. She turned, her emerald eyes wide with shock and fear. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm Elara, a logistics worker from Voran." Jake flashed a smile, cold and unyielding. "You might fool others, but not me. The way you dodge Earth proteins, the way you slip into a different speech pattern when you're tired, it doesn't add up for a Voran. And that mark on your wrist? I checked. It's a royal sigil from Siltharis." Elara's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. "Please! Not here." Jake studied her for a moment, weighing his options. "Your quarters, 1 hour." He turned and walked away, leaving Elara clutching her tray, her gaze heavy with dread. An hour later, Jake stood outside Elara's private quarters in the civilian sector of the Eclipse Vanguard. He'd swapped his formal security uniform for black tactical pants and a shirt bearing the security badge. His metal belt gleamed under the hallway's lights as he pressed the door panel. The door slid open, revealing a woman he barely recognized. Elara, or rather, Silvara, had shed her logistics disguise. Her golden skin now glowed with intricate patterns, like rivers of light tracing her face and disappearing beneath the collar of a stunning gown woven from fabric that shifted colors with the light. Her emerald eyes carried a regal authority, free of the earlier timidity. "Come in, Lieutenant," she said, gesturing to a small chair near a table. "Since you know who I am, there's no point in pretending." Jake stepped inside, the door sealing shut behind him. The standard ship quarters had been transformed by subtle touches, shimmering fabrics draped on the walls, alien artifacts with unfamiliar designs, and a faint floral scent, like a meadow from a distant world. He remained standing, his eyes sweeping the room before settling on her. "The Alliance has been hunting you for over a year, Princess Silvara. The official story is you vanished after an attack on a Siltherian royal ship. Yet here you are, hiding under a fake identity on a human vessel. Why?" Silvara walked to a small cabinet, pulling out 2 glasses and a pitcher of clear liquid. "Care for a drink?" "It's just water." "I'll pass," Jake said. She poured herself a glass, taking a sip before facing him. "The attack was real. Extremists on my planet wanted to stop me from leaving. They thought I was betraying our traditions. But I left to save my people." Jake crossed his arms. "Save them from what?" "Silthurus isn't on the Alliance's list of endangered planets." Silvara set her glass down. "That's because the Alliance doesn't want to admit the truth. My planet is dying, Lieutenant Callahan. Silthurus's energy core is destabilizing. In 5 years, it'll collapse, tearing the planet apart. The Alliance knows, but they won't help because we're not full members." Jake frowned. "The Alliance offered to evacuate some of your people, didn't they?" "A fraction of a %, Silvara said, her eyes flashing with anger. "Scientists, artists, those they deem valuable. What about the billions of others? They'll be left to die. So why are you here?" Jake asked. "You think you can single-handedly change Alliance policy?" Silvara stepped closer, close enough for Jake to catch her strange scent, a mix of flowers and metal. "I'm here for terraforming technology. The Alliance has it, but they don't share with non-member worlds. I believe the Eclipse Vanguard holds the data or equipment needed to save Silthurus." Jake felt the weight of her desperation, but he kept his expression steady. "You're asking me to help you steal Alliance tech? That's treason. I'm asking you to save billions of lives," Silvara said, her eyes locked on his. "Isn't that why you joined security? To protect people, not just the Alliance?" Jake didn't answer immediately. He studied her, searching for any hint of deception, but found only fierce determination. "I need time to think. Tomorrow, same time, I'll be back." Silvara nodded, a spark of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Jake. Even just listening, you've done more than I dared hope." As Jake left her quarters, a storm of emotions churned inside him. He should report her immediately. It was his duty, his oath. But Silvara's story held him back. Billions of lives. A dying planet. And the Alliance, with all its power, choosing to look away? Back in the security hub, Jake sat at his console, the blue glow of the screens lighting his face. He pulled up data on Silthurus, but found only vague reports of geological instability, no official word on an impending catastrophe. It raised red flags. If Silvara was right, why was the Alliance hiding it? A message from his commander, Colonel Marcus Kane, popped up on the screen. "Callahan, my office." Now. Adrenaline surged through Jake. Had someone seen him with Ilara? Or worse, had they uncovered her true identity? He stood, adjusted his uniform, and headed down the corridor. Colonel Kane's office was stark, its metal walls adorned with star charts and medals from past campaigns. Kane, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair, sat behind his desk, holding a tablet. "Close the door, Callahan," Kane said. Jake complied, standing at attention. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Kane set the tablet down, his eyes piercing. "I got a report you were talking to a logistics worker, Ilara Vin, in the mess hall today. Care to explain?" Jake had his answer ready. "I was conducting routine security checks on civilian staff. It's standard procedure, but it can make people nervous." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? Because my source says you called her by a very specific name. A royal name from Silthurus, a planet that's been a thorn in the Alliance's side for years." Jake kept his face neutral, though his pulse quickened. "I'm not sure what your source heard, sir, but Enough, Callahan. Kane cut him off, standing and activating a privacy shield on the wall. What I'm about to say doesn't leave this room. Understood? Yes, sir, Jake said. Kane sat back down. We've known Princess Silvara was on this ship for 3 months, since she boarded at Centauri Station. We've been watching her, waiting to see what she's up to. What we didn't expect was one of our security officers going rogue and approaching her. Jake couldn't hide his surprise. You knew who she was? Damn right, Kane said. Siltherus is messier than she realizes. There are factions in their government, called the Purists, who want to keep the planet independent, even if it means letting their people die. The Alliance offered evacuation, but only if Siltherus fully joins us, something the Purists refuse. Jake processed this, comparing it to Silvara's words. So why not arrest her? Because she's an asset, Kane said. Silvara doesn't know the Alliance has bigger plans. The terraforming tech she's after? It exists, but it's not fast enough to save Siltherus before their core collapses. She could convince her government to cooperate with us. Jake frowned. What do you want me to do? Keep in contact with her, Kane said. Let her think you're on her side. Find out who she's been talking to on and off the ship. We need to know if there are other Sotherian agents on the Eclipse Vanguard. Jake hesitated. You're asking me to spy on her? I'm asking you to do your job, Kane said. Protect this ship and everyone on it. Silvara means well, but she's desperate, and desperation breeds dangerous choices. Jake stood still, weighing his options. If he refused, Kane would assign someone else, someone who might not care about Silvara's safety. But agreeing meant betraying her trust. I'll do it, Jake said. But I want your word she won't be harmed. Kane nodded. You have it. Our goal is to bring Siltherus into the Alliance, and save as many of their people as possible. Silvara could be the key. As Jake left Kane's office, his mind was a tangle of conflicting thoughts. He'd just agreed to deceive Silvara, yet he felt a fierce urge to protect her. Was Kane telling the whole truth? Or was Silvara right to suspect the Alliance? That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He lay in his bunk, staring at the starlight filtering through a small viewport. He thought of Silvara, her emerald eyes, her burning resolve to save her people. He knew he was walking a dangerous path, but something about her, her strength laced with vulnerability, made it impossible to turn away. The next morning, Jake headed to the logistics bay, where Silvara was inventorying crates in a storage room. The shimmering patterns on her skin flickered under the dim lights. When she saw him, she paused, her gaze wary. Lieutenant Callahan, she said. I didn't expect you back. We need to talk, Jake said, motioning to a secluded corner. Somewhere private. She led him to a small storage room. When the door closed, Silvara crossed her arms. What's your decision? Turn me in, or help me? Jake leaned against the wall. I need more. You say your planet's dying, but why do you think the Eclipse Vanguard has terraforming tech? This is an exploration ship, not a research lab. Silvara gave a faint smile. I'm not naive, Lieutenant. This ship carries data from every Alliance research program. I know there's information on a next-gen terraforming reactor, a device that can reshape a planet's atmosphere in months. Jake raised an eyebrow. A reactor like that would change everything. If the Alliance has it, why aren't they using it? Because it's too expensive, Silvara said. And because the Alliance doesn't share that kind of power with worlds that won't bow to them. A chill ran through Jake. If she was right, the Alliance was withholding tech that could save billions for political gain. You got proof? Silvara pulled out a small device, activating a holographic image of a complex machine. This is a leaked blueprint from an Alliance lab. The full data is in this ship's archives. Jake stared at the hologram, his mind racing. If this was real, he was standing on the edge of a secret that could reshape a civilization. But accessing the archives was near impossible, unless he was willing to break every rule he'd sworn to uphold. I need time, he said. But if I help you, I want the truth. All of it. Silvara nodded, her eyes bright with hope. Thank you, Jake. I'll tell you everything, but you have to promise me one thing. What? Don't let them take me. If I'm caught, my people's hope dies. Jake met her gaze, feeling an inexplicable connection. I promise, he said, though he wasn't sure he could keep it. Jake sat in his cramped quarters aboard the Eclipse Vanguard, starlight filtering through the small viewport, casting faint, ghostly streaks across the walls. His mind was consumed by Silvara, her shimmering emerald eyes, the glowing patterns tracing her pale golden skin, and her desperate tale of a dying planet. His promise to her, that he wouldn't let the Alliance take her, weighed heavily on his shoulders. But Colonel Kane's orders to spy on her tore at him, pulling him between duty and something deeper, something he couldn't yet name. He activated his personal comm device, pulling up the holographic image of the terraforming reactor Silvara had shown him. If it was real, this device could rewrite the fate of billions on Silthris. But the ship's data archives were locked in a restricted zone, guarded by advanced security systems and round-the-clock personnel. Accessing it wasn't just a breach of protocol, it was a crime that could land him in a brig or, worse, exiled from the ship. Jake stood, pacing the tight space. He needed a plan, but first, he had to figure out how much he could trust Silvara. She claimed to be a princess fighting for her dying world, but what if she had other motives? And if Kane was right about the purists on Silthris sabotaging evacuation efforts, did Silvara know about their schemes? He made his decision. He'd meet her again, but this time, he'd ask the hard questions. He needed the truth, not just from her, but from the system he'd sworn to serve. The next morning, Jake found Silvara in the logistics bay. She was working in a storage room, cataloging crates with laser-sharp focus. The glowing patterns on her skin flickered under the dim lights, as if pulsing with her breath. When she noticed him, she paused, her eyes wary but tinged with hope. You came back, she said, setting a crate down. I thought you might change your mind. Jake motioned for her to follow him to a secluded corner, out of reach of the ship's surveillance cameras. I said I'd return, and I keep my word. But we need to get real. If I'm going to help you, I need everything, not just your planet's sob story, but what you're really after. Silvara nodded, leading him into a small storage closet. The door slid shut, leaving them in a cramped space lit only by a single overhead bulb. I told you about the terraforming reactor, she began. But there's something I didn't mention. That tech isn't just sitting in the data archives. It's being tested, right here on the Eclipse Vanguard. Jake's pulse quickened. Tested? Where? In a classified research lab, deep in the ship's lowest levels. Silvara said. I overheard two scientists in the biolab talking about a project codenamed Genesis Core. That's the terraforming reactor, and it's being run through a simulated planetary model. Jake's brow furrowed. If this is legit, why is the Alliance keeping it under wraps? Tech like that could change everything, not just for Silthris, but for every barren world out there. Silvara shook her head. They're hiding it for power. A reactor like Genesis Core doesn't just terraform, it can turn dead planets into colonies in months. Whoever controls it controls the galaxy. The Alliance won't share, especially not with a holdout like Silthris that refuses to join them. Doubt surged in Jake's gut. You know way more than a runaway princess should. How'd you get this intel? Silvara hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. Before I left Silthris, I worked with a covert group of scientists. They call themselves the Starlight Coalition, people who believe we have to save ourselves instead of begging the Alliance for scraps. They gave me leaked blueprints and details about the Eclipse Vanguard. But to get the full data, I need access to that research lab. Jake crossed his arms, staring her down. So you want me to help you break into a top-secret Alliance facility, steal their tech, and hand it over to some shadowy science crew? You hear how insane that sounds, right? Silvara stepped closer, her eyes unwavering. I know it's crazy. But I'm out of options. If I don't do this, my people die. You don't have to trust me, but think about this. If the Alliance really wanted to help us, why would they let billions perish over a political spat? Her words hit hard. Jake had seen enough of the Alliance's underbelly to know transparency wasn't their strong suit. Years as a security officer had shown him that orders from the top weren't always for the greater good. But helping Silvara meant betraying the people he'd sworn to protect. "I need more," he said. "If I'm in, I want to know who you've been talking to on this ship. You can't be working alone." Silvara nodded slowly. "There's one person. Dr. Elena Ruiz, a biologist in the research sector. She's suspected my identity since I went to the lab for a health check. She hasn't said anything, but I've seen the way she looks at me, like she knows I'm hiding something. I think she could help us." Jake filed the name away. "I'll check her out. But if I catch you lying, or if I see any sign you're playing me, I'll drag you to Colonel Kane myself." Silvara gave a faint smile. "Fair enough. But watch your back, Jake. I'm not the only one with secrets on this ship." Back in the security hub, Jake's mind was a mess. He pulled up Dr. Elena Ruiz's file in the ship's database. She was a respected biologist, with a history of working on cutting-edge Alliance projects. But a small note caught his eye. She'd been disciplined for opposing an Alliance decision to deny aid to a non-member planet hit by a natural disaster. Maybe Silvara was right. Elena could be an ally. Before he could dig deeper, an urgent alert flashed on his screen. A security incident in the tech sector, a minor gas leak, but enough to trigger alarms. Jake was assigned to investigate. At the scene, he found technicians scrambling to fix the issue, but one detail stopped him cold. A short, wiry man with icy eyes was trying to slip away in a hurry. Jake blocked his path. "Name?" The man hesitated. "Cale Vorn, Tech Level 2. Jake studied him, unease creeping up his spine. "Stay put until this is resolved." "That's an order." Vorn nodded, but his eyes were sharp with suspicion. Jake memorized his face. Something was off, and he vowed to check Vorn's file as soon as he was back. That night, Jake met Silvara in the storage closet again. She was waiting, the patterns on her skin casting a soft glow in the dark. "Did you look into Elena?" she asked. Jake nodded. "She's got reasons to distrust the Alliance. But I'm not sold on bringing her in yet. We need a solid plan to hit the research lab without getting caught." Silvara pulled out her device, activating a 3D map of the ship. "I've studied the Eclipse Vanguard's layout. The classified lab is on the lowest deck, secured by a biometric lock. Only registered DNA gets through." Jake frowned. "So how do we crack it?" "I have a way," Silvara said. "My DNA, it's unique. Siltherians, especially royals, can temporarily alter their biological structure to match lock systems. But I need a DNA sample from someone with access, like a scientist or senior officer." A chill ran through Jake. "You're talking about stealing someone's DNA? That's not just risky, it's crossing a moral line." Silvara met his gaze. "I know. But I'm out of moves. If you've got a better idea, I'm all ears." Jake went silent. He knew getting into the lab would mean big risks, but a growing urge to help Silvara tugged at him, not just because of her story, but something deeper. Maybe it was his own frustration with the Alliance's secrets. "I'll figure it out," he said finally. "But we play this careful. If we get caught, we're done." Silvara nodded, her expression softening. "Thank you, Jake. I know I'm asking a lot, but I trust you." Her words sparked a strange warmth in him, but also a heavy burden. He was diving into dangerous waters, and he wasn't sure he could keep his promise. Over the next few days, Jake started piecing together a plan. He learned Dr. Elena Ruiz had regular access to the research lab and its biometric locks. But getting her DNA without raising flags was a tall order. He decided to approach her indirectly, posing as a routine security check. He found Elena in the biolab, working on a strange microbial sample. She was in her 30s, with neatly tied brown hair and sharp eyes. "Lieutenant Callahan," she said as he entered. "I'm guessing this isn't a social call?" Jake flashed a grin. "Just a standard check. But word is you're working on some wild projects." Anything worth sharing? Elena raised an eyebrow. You're nosier than the average security grunt, Lieutenant. If you must know, I'm studying microbes that could aid terraforming. Project Genesis Core, if that rings a bell. Jake kept his face neutral, but his heart raced. Genesis Core? Sounds like a big deal. Maybe, Elena said, turning back to her sample. But it's also a secret the Alliance doesn't want getting out. I'm not sure I buy their approach, but that's above my pay grade. Jake catalogued every word. Elena clearly knew more than she let on, and her skepticism about the Alliance made him think she could be an ally, or a liability. That night, Jake and Silvara met in a deserted service corridor. She carried a small device, shaped like a pen, designed to harvest DNA painlessly. If we get Elena's sample, I can use it to bypass the biometric lock, Silvara said. Jake nodded, unease gnawing at him. I'll handle the sample. But if this goes south, we'll be hunted like criminals. Silvara placed a hand on his arm, her touch light but warm. I know you're risking everything for me. I won't forget it. In that dim corridor, Jake felt a deeper connection to Silvara, not just sympathy for her cause, but a strange sense that fate had drawn them together. He shook it off. This wasn't the time for feelings to cloud his judgment. The plan kicked off the next day. Jake staged a fake incident in the tech sector, a minor energy leak alarm, enough to pull security away from the research lab. In the chaos, he and Silvara slipped into the biolab, where Elena was working alone. Jake knocked, keeping his cool. Dr. Ruiz, I need you to check a security device. Might be tied to the leak. Elena eyed him, suspicious. Now? I'm in the middle of something. Won't take long, Jake said, stepping inside. As Elena examined the decoy device he handed her, Silvara quietly used the DNA sampler, brushing it against Elena's hand without a trace. But as they prepared to leave, an alarm blared. Jake glanced at the wall monitor. The security system had detected an unauthorized breach in the research sector. He cursed under his breath. Cale Vorn, the technician he'd crossed paths with, stood in the outer hallway, his cold eyes locked on them. Lieutenant Callahan, Vorn said. Who's this girl, and why is she here? Jake stepped in front of Silvara. She's logistics. I'm running a security check. Vorn's smile was icy. Is that so? Because I think she's the one Colonel Kane's looking for. Before Jake could respond, Vorn hit a button on his calm alarm screamed through the sector. Jake grabbed Silvara's hand, pulling her toward the service corridor. We gotta move, now! They sprinted through narrow passages, the sound of security boots pounding behind them. Silvara panted but clung to the device with Elena's DNA sample. We got it, she gasped. We can get into the lab. Not if we're caught first. Jake shot back, guiding her into a small storage room. He locked the door, steadying his breathing. We need a safe spot to lay low. Silvara met his eyes, her resolve unshaken. I know a place. There's an emergency pod near the ship's core, off the main surveillance grid. Jake nodded. Lead the way. They reached the emergency pod, a tight space with a cot, basic comms, and a few supply crates. Jake secured the door, checking for cameras or bugs. Satisfied it was clean, he turned to Silvara. The patterns on her skin glowed brightly, mirroring her tension. We almost got nabbed, she said, sinking onto the cot. I've dragged you into a mess. Jake sat beside her. We're not caught yet. And we've got the DNA. What's next? Silvara checked the sample on her device. I can use this to crack the biometric lock. But we need to hit the lab before they tighten security. Jake studied her, a mix of admiration and worry swirling inside him. Why are you doing this, Silvara? You're a princess. You could have stayed safe in a palace, let someone else handle saving your planet. She turned, her emerald eyes piercing his. Because I'm a princess. My people depend on me. If I do nothing, billions die. I can't live with that. Her words struck a chord deep within him. Jake had joined security to protect others, but years with the Alliance had left him questioning if he was making a difference. Silvara, with her raw desperation and unbreakable will, reminded him why he'd started. "We'll pull this off," he said. "But from now on, we trust each other completely. No secrets." Silvara nodded, placing her hand on his. "No secrets." In that cramped pod, Jake felt a stronger bond with Silvara, not just empathy for her plight, but a sense they were facing something bigger than themselves, together. He knew, whatever came next, he'd chosen her side. Jake and Silvara huddled in the cramped emergency pod, the dim glow of a ceiling bulb casting faint light across the shimmering patterns on her pale golden skin. The device holding Dr. Elena Ruiz's DNA sample sat on the table between them, a stark reminder of the risks they'd just dodged. Distant alarms wailed, but this pod, tucked away from the Eclipse Vanguard's main surveillance grid, was a temporary safe haven. Jake checked the door one last time, ensuring it was sealed tight, then turned to Silvara. His eyes burned with determination, though worry lingered beneath. "We're running out of time," Jake said, glancing at his personal comm device. "No pursuit signals yet, but security teams were surely scouring the ship. Cale Vorn saw us. He knows who you are, and he'll report it." Silvara nodded, her emerald eyes locked on his. "We've got the DNA sample. If we can reach the research lab, I can access the Genesis core. But we need to move now." Jake leaned against the wall, his mind racing. He'd promised to protect her, but every step they took felt like a betrayal of his oath to the Alliance. Yet the thought of billions of lives on Siltherus, and his growing doubts about the Alliance's motives, kept him from turning back. "All right," he said. "But we need a solid plan. The research lab's locked down tight. One mistake, and we're done." Silvara picked up the DNA device, inspecting it. "I can bypass the biometric lock. But we need a way in without tripping alarms. You've got security clearance, right?" Jake frowned. "Mid-level access, not enough for the lab. We need Elena. She can get us in without raising flags." Silvara nodded, but her eyes were skeptical. "You sure about her? She could turn us in." "Not sure," Jake admitted. "But she's our best shot. I'll convince her." Jake found Dr. Elena Ruiz in the biolab, hunched over a microbial sample under a microscope. Her focus broke as he entered, her sharp eyes narrowing. "Lieutenant Callahan. Another security check?" Jake closed the door, ensuring privacy. "Not exactly. I need to talk about Project Genesis Core." Elena set the microscope aside, crossing her arms. "You're treading dangerous ground, Lieutenant. Genesis Core is top-secret Alliance business." "I know," Jake said, stepping closer. "And I know you don't agree with how the Alliance is handling it. You got disciplined for opposing their refusal to aid a non-member planet. I think you can help us." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Us? You and that logistics girl, Ilara Vin? Or should I say Princess Silvara?" Jake couldn't hide his surprise. "You knew?" "I'm not an idiot," Elena said. "Shimmering skin, pointed ears, avoiding Earth proteins. I've suspected for a while. But why are you helping her?" Jake chose his words carefully. He couldn't spill everything, but he needed her trust. "Siltherus is dying. Their planetary core will collapse in a few years. The Alliance knows but won't help because Siltherus isn't a member. Silvara's trying to save her people, and I believe her." Elena studied him, her gaze probing. "And you think Genesis Core is the answer?" "That tech's untested. It could fail, or worse, backfire catastrophically. We've got no choice," Jake said. "If you don't help, billions die. Can you live with that?" Elena went quiet, her eyes dropping to the floor. Finally, she nodded. "Fine. I'm in. But if we get caught, I'm saying you forced me." Jake cracked a small smile. "Fair enough." The plan came together fast. Elena would use her clearance to get Jake and Silvara into the research lab under the guise of a security inspection. Silvara would use the DNA sample to bypass the biometric lock, while Jake monitored the corridors through the security system. But as they prepared to leave the lab, an urgent alert blared on Jake's calm Cale Vorn, The technician he'd been wary of had reported a breach near the ship's core. Security teams were mobilizing, and they had minutes before they'd be cornered. "We gotta move," Jake said, grabbing Silvara's hand. "Elena, lead the way." They darted through narrow corridors, dodging patrol teams. Elena guided them to a hidden elevator reserved for senior staff. When it opened on the lowest deck, a blast of cold air hit them. The classified research lab stretched out before them, a vast chamber of gleaming metal walls, intricate machinery, and a massive, glowing reactor at its heart. The Genesis core. Silvara approached the control room door, activating the DNA device. The patterns on her skin flared as she pressed her hand to the lock panel. A green light flashed, and the door slid open. "We're in," she said, glancing back at Jake and Elena. But before they could enter, a shout echoed behind them. "Freeze!" Cale Vorn stood at the end of the corridor, energy pistol in hand, flanked by a security squad. "Lieutenant Callahan, you've gone too far. Princess Silvara, you're under arrest." Jake shoved Silvara into the control room, facing Vorn. "Lower your weapon, Vorn. She's not a threat." Vorn sneered. "Not a threat? She's a spy, and you're a traitor. Colonel Kane will be disappointed." Elena stepped between them. "Cale, you don't get it. Genesis Core could save billions. The Alliance is hoarding this tech for their own gain." Vorn shook his head. "I don't care about that. My job is to protect this ship." He signaled his team to advance. But before they could move, a deafening explosion rocked the tech sector above. Wall monitors flickered, showing a blast in the ship's power systems. Jake knew instantly it was sabotage. "Who's behind this?" he shouted, glaring at Vorn. Vorn looked stunned. "Not us." Silvara burst from the control room, her eyes wild. "It's the purists. They've tracked me down. They're trying to destroy the ship to stop me from getting the core." Jake grabbed her hand, pulling her back inside. "Elena, lock the door. We need to activate the core now." Elena rushed to the main console, her hands flying over the controls. "I'm not sure I can do this. The system's too complex." Silvara stood beside her, her skin's patterns blazing like fire. "I'll help. Our tech has similarities. Just guide me." While Elena and Silvara worked, Jake braced against the door, ready to face the security team. A second explosion, closer now, shook the ship. Monitors showed chaos, technicians fleeing, the Eclipse Vanguard's power grid collapsing. Vorn stormed into the room, pistol still aimed at Jake. "Stop, Callahan. She'll kill us all." Jake shielded Silvara and Elena. "She's not doing this, Vorn. Someone's sabotaging the ship, and I'd bet it's the purists. If she doesn't get the core, Siltharis is done." Vorn hesitated, his eyes wavering. "How do I know you're not lying?" Jake stepped forward, locking eyes with him. "Because I swore to protect this ship, and I don't break my oaths. But I also can't let billions die because of the Alliance's greed." A tense moment passed. Finally, Vorn lowered his gun. "If you're wrong, I'll shoot you myself." Jake nodded. "Deal." Silvara and Elena worked frantically at the console. The patterns on Silvara's skin pulsed in rhythm, as if syncing with the core's tech. "I'm in," she shouted. "The data's transferring." The monitors showed a torrent of data streaming to Silvara's device. The Genesis core's secrets were hers. But before they could celebrate, a third explosion rocked the ship, plunging the control room into darkness. Jake ran to the observation window, seeing flames erupt from the tech sector. "We need to get out, now," he yelled. Elena grabbed Silvara's arm. "The data's transferred. Let's go." But as they hit the corridor, a group in black gear appeared, weapons raised. Vorn recognized them instantly. "Purists," he said, raising his gun. Jake pushed Silvara behind him, drawing his energy pistol. "Keep her safe, Vorn. I'll handle them." A firefight erupted in the tight corridor. Jake moved like a storm, dropping 2 attackers before they could fire. Vorn provided cover, while Elena pulled Silvara toward the elevator. But one purist lobbed an explosive device, and Jake barely shoved Silvara out of its path. When the smoke cleared, Jake lay on the floor, blood seeping from a shoulder wound. Silvara knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. Jake, no. You can't die. He gripped her hand, managing a weak smile. Not dead yet. Get the data and go. Save your people. Vorn hauled Jake to his feet, slinging his arm over his shoulder. We're moving. The ship's falling apart. They raced to the nearest escape pod as the Eclipse Vanguard shuddered violently. Elena activated the pod, and the group crammed inside. As it launched, Jake peered through the window, watching the ship burn in the void. Thousands were still aboard, and a sharp pain stabbed his chest. Silvara squeezed his hand, her eyes fierce. We've got the core. I'll take it to Silthrus and save my people. I swear it. Jake nodded, pain clouding his vision. I trust you. The escape pod landed at a nearby Alliance space station, where rescue teams took them in. Jake was rushed to medical, while Silvara and Elena worked with scientists to decode the Genesis core data. Vorn, now on their side, explained the situation to the station's commanders. In the medbay, Jake lay bandaged on a cot. Silvara entered, her royal gown shimmering under the lights. She sat beside him, taking his hand. You saved me, she said. And you saved my people. Jake smiled. We did it together. Silvara leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to his forehead. When Silthrus is saved, I want you there. I want you to see what we've done. Jake squeezed her hand. I'll be there. But next time, I want a quieter trip. She laughed, her smile radiant as starlight, the first time Jake had seen it so bright. A month later, Jake stood on the station's docking platform, watching a ship prepared to carry Silvara back to her world. The Genesis core data had been decrypted, and scientists confirmed it could save Silthrus if deployed in time. The Alliance, rocked by the Eclipse Vanguard's destruction, was forced to admit the truth about the tech and agreed to aid Silthrus. Colonel Kane, a survivor of the explosion, approached Jake. You pulled a dumb move, Callahan. But maybe it was the right one. Jake nodded. Sometimes, right's what matters most. Kane clapped his shoulder. She's waiting. Don't let her go alone. Jake boarded the ship, where Silvara stood, her skin's patterns blending with the starlight outside. She reached out, and Jake took her hand, feeling a bond that transcended species. We'll make it work, he said. Together. The ship launched into the cosmos, carrying a planet's hope and the oath of two souls who'd found each other amid the vast universe. Dear reader, you who've journeyed with Jake Callahan and Princess Silvara through the icy corridors of the Eclipse Vanguard, among glittering stars and cosmic secrets, I hope the oath beneath the stars has left a lasting mark on your heart. This isn't just a tale of a human security officer and an alien princess. It's a saga of compassion, sacrifice, and humanity's unmatched ability to bridge divides and spark change. When Jake took Silvara's hand, vowing to save Silthrus, it wasn't merely a promise between two souls. It was a testament to the strength of humanity, a strength rooted not in tech or firepower, but in a heart that dares to care and act for what's right. At its core, this story asks, are we willing to risk everything for strangers from another world? Jake, with his razor-sharp instincts and tested loyalty, chose to stand with Silvara, not just for her, but for the billions of lives he'd never know. The lesson here is clear: compassion and courage can shift destinies, not just for one soul but for an entire planet. In the vast cosmos, where civilizations clash and secrets lurk, it's humanity's knack for building bridges, through friendship, trust, or love, that sets us apart. My friend, as you close this tale, I'm eager to hear your thoughts. Did Jake stand against Kale Vorn, shielding Silvara, make you feel his inner struggle? Did Silvara's resolve, her skin blazing like fire, ignite your inspiration? And that ending, with their shared gaze toward a new future, does it leave you curious about what awaits on Silthrus? This story was born in those hazy moments when I pondered, what makes humanity a beacon in the cosmic dark? Elements like the Genesis core, the purists, and the alliance across species were my way of exploring that question. Your feedback is my guiding star. Every reaction, whether a spark of excitement, a flicker of doubt, or a quiet reflection, shapes the tales I'll weave next. Like Jake and Silvara finding each other at the edge of duty and morality, I hope we, writer and reader, forge a connection, exploring worlds that exist only in our shared imagination. Share your thoughts, and who knows? The next story might spring from the embers of what you feel today. P.S. There are eyes watching from the cosmic shadows. But that's a tale for another day, or maybe sooner, if you're game.